Next, let's take a look at how we can improve the whites of the eyes. We'll be working with this portrait here, and this is actually an image that we've seen previously in this course. Previously, we explored how we could improve some of the skin and also the tones or the brightness of the skin. Next, I want to work on the eyes, and often that's our workflow. We work on a certain area, and then we get to another area. Well, here with this image, let's zoom into the eyes and take a look at what we have here. For me, with portraits, it's all about the eyes. I find the eyes endlessly fascinating. And when I zoom in, I notice a few little veins here, and I want to remove those. So we'll create a new layer, click on the new layer icon. And then next, we'll double click the layer name here. We'll call this one eyes. And then from here, what we want to do is select the spot healing brush. So I'll go ahead and choose a spot healing brush. And up top, we can choose our brush size. Often what you'll find is your brush size will be way too big. If that's the case, just press and hold the left bracket key. That will decrease the size, or just tap it a number of times. You want to sample all layers, so all your retouching will be done on the layer above. And then next, you want your brush to be just a little bit bigger than the blemish you're working on, in this case, this little vein. So I'll go ahead and just go over that area. Tap the right bracket key to make the brush a little bit bigger, and then I'll work on another area too, over here. If ever you find that it isn't quite working for you, or the spot healing brush isn't working for you, try the healing brush. Same kind of thing. And the reason is sometimes when you can select your own source area, and when you're in a little tight space like this with the eyes, that can help you to select a good source area and then remove or retouch away anything you find distracting. Now, how else can we deal with those little spider veins? Well, another way that we can do this, apart from using our healing brush and selecting the source area and painting that away, is we can use the clone stamp tool. So here I'll choose the clone stamp tool, tap the left bracket key to make this a little bit smaller, and then just click and paint down. And sometimes you'll find it's a combination of both of these tools because, again, with clone stamp, what you can do is take good content and put it over bad content. You can do the same thing with healing. It's just that healing will bring in a little bit more blending. Sometimes healing saves the day, sometimes clone stamp. You tend to want to try both. If one of them isn't working, try the other one. And sometimes it's both of these together, which can help you achieve really good results. If ever you're on an edge, like it's on the edge of the eye, just sample that edge and make sure the new edge is lining up. And that will make sure that you're not getting any kind of bleeding that's coming in. And so as long as that's lined up, you can really do some nice retouching there. All right, well, with this, you can see, hopefully, or let me zoom back in, you can see how I'm just retouching away some of the shiny spots, some of the veins, and then over here, same thing as well. Now, how about brightening up the whites? How can we do that? Well, in my own workflow, I found the most effective way to do that. There are a number of different techniques, but the one which is most effective, which I use most frequently, is to create a new layer and to name this layer whites. What we'll do is we'll take this layer blending mode to soft light, and we are going to paint with white on this layer. So we'll grab our brush, we'll choose white as our foreground color. My brush is currently gigantic, so I'm going to make that nice and small. Make sure you have 0% hardness. And I'm going to make it even smaller here so I can make sure I can paint in all of these areas. With the opacity, we'll bring this below 50%. I'm going to go down to 30%. See how that is. And the reason why you want to bring it low is because the brightness of the eye shouldn't be uniform. There should be certain areas which are a little bit darker and other areas which are maybe a little bit brighter. And so I'm going to brighten up certain areas by painting over it more. And then other areas, like when I get to the edge, I'll just paint it up a little bit less. Tap the left bracket key, make that a little bit smaller so I can work along the edge there. And then also maybe a little bit up there. And when we get to this, we aren't looking for sort of perfection. Rather, we're just looking for this nice, really subtle brightening effect that is improving this part of the image. So again, you can see that before and after there. Let me zoom out so you can see this a little better in this way. You can see it on the right eye. See how I'm brightening that area up? And it doesn't look over the top. If you want it to be even brighter, just work with a higher opacity, right? And that will allow you to bring that up even more. If it still isn't enough, duplicate this layer. When you duplicate it, it will double the effect. And you can see how now I have even more brightness in that area. For me, with this photograph, that looks kind of fake. So I'm going to delete that. I think this looks nice and natural. All right, we have to work on the other eye. So again, we zoom way in there with our brush tool. We start with a low opacity. Here I'm currently at 20% opacity, and I'm just going to paint over this. As you're painting over this and brightening up this area, you want to make sure you're covering all the different sides, all the areas, have good edge detail. And if you make a mistake, which is easy to do when you're doing detail work, right? You can always erase, because this is a separate layer, just sitting up there by itself. And this way we have non-destructive workflow, which is always a good thing, because sometimes you can brighten up the whites and then create a print or send the image to someone and realize, oops, I overdid it. And if you overdid it, we can always fix that. Okay, well, now we have the whites of the eyes. We have that nice brightness there. And speaking of overdoing it, I feel like it's a touch too strong, so I'm going to drop this back just a 10 or 15%. There we go. And if we look at the before and after of the eyes, this was the before, and now here is the after.